Hello everyone, this is Mr. Molo for the 6.1 puzzle time. So the joke for this one is, why do bees have sticky hair? So normally I only go through a couple of these, or if I go through all of them, it's because there's 5 or 6 questions. But since this is a tougher lesson, I'm going to go through all of them. So this might be a little bit longer of a video. So number 1, we have -9 to the 0 power. And if you remember, anything to the 0 power is 1. And that would be letter O down here. And then number 2, we have 4 to the -2nd power. So remember, when we have ones like this, it's a good idea to think of it, what's 4 to the +2nd power? And then we pretty much just put a 1 underneath it. So we have 4 to the 2nd power is 16. So 4 to the -2nd power would be 1 over 16. And that would be letter E down here. Okay, and then we have -6 to the -3rd power. So again, same thing. We should think of what it is. What's -6 to the +3rd power, and that's -216. So 6 to the -3rd power is 1 over 216, and that's letter B. Okay, and now we have one of those where it's going to flip because it's a fraction. So 4 to the 0 power is just going to be 1, so that can just go away. Remember, anything to the 0 power is 1. And then we have 8 to the -3rd power. So 8 to the +3rd power is 512. So 8 to the -3rd power is 1 over 512. So letter A. Okay, number 5, we have 12 to the -2nd power over -13 to the 0 power. Again, anything to the 0 power is 1, so that doesn't matter. So 12 to the -2nd power. So 12 to the +2nd power is 144. So 12 to the -2nd power is 1 over 144, or letter Y. Okay, 6, it looks like both of these are going to end up flipping. So let me write them flipped first. So 9 to the -2nd power, since it has a negative exponent, flips to the bottom. 3 to the -3rd power, since it has a negative exponent, flips to the top. So I'm really looking at 3 to the 3rd power over 9 to the 2nd power. And we can simplify that as 3 to the 3rd power is 27. And 9 squared is 81. And the same as 27 over 81 is 1/3, letter E up there. Okay, so now we're getting to some of these. There's some of them might stay on top, and some of them might switch to the bottom. Okay, 15 does not have a negative exponent, so it's going to stay on top of our fraction. X to the 0 power is just going to be 1, so that kind of goes away. And y to the -2nd power is going to switch to the bottom because it has a negative exponent. So when I'm looking at this one, I'm looking for someone that says 15 over y squared, and that's down here. That's letter T. Okay, same thing here. So 21 does not have a negative exponent, so it stays on top. X to the -5th power does have a negative exponent of -5, so it switches to the bottom. And y to the 0 is just 1, because it's anything to the 0 power is 1. And it looks like that's going to be letter O over here, 21 over x to the 5th. Okay, same thing over here on number 9. 10 to the -2nd power. Well, 10 to the -2nd, that's going to end up switching because it has a negative exponent. So that's really 10 to the 2nd. Same thing with x to the -4th. That's going to end up switching because it's x to the -4th power. Y to the 0 goes away because it's anything to the 0 power is 1. So I'm left with 10 squared times x to the 4th. And 10 squared is the same as 100. So letter E, 100 x to the 4th. Okay. And then number 10 here, we have 3 to the -4th power. Well, that's going to switch because it's a -4th power. X to the 0 going to go away because it's 0. And y to the -8 switches to the top because it's a negative exponent. So I'm looking for something y to the 8th times 3 to the 4th power. And 3 to the 4th power is 81. So letter S over here. Okay, looks like we got some more of those on number 11. So we got 14. That has a positive exponent, or it doesn't have a negative exponent, it just has an exponent of 1, so that stays on top. X to the 0 goes away, because it's 1. Y to the -2nd switches to the bottom, and now we got some stuff on the bottom that switches to the top, because 2 to the -1st power switches to the top because it has a -1. And same thing with z to the negative third power. That also switches to the top because it has a negative 3 as the exponent. And then we got to do some math here. 14 times 2 is 28. Z to the third, y to the second. So letter H after we do that little bit of multiplication. Okay. 12 looks like it has a lot of switches going on. So we have 5 to the second power, positive second, so that stays on top. Y to the negative 10th, okay, so that's a negative, so that's switching to the bottom. 5 to the negative first, okay, another negative, so it switches to the top. Z to the 0 is just 1, so that goes away. And then we have x to the negative 5th. So that has a negative, so that switches to the top. And now I really have 5 squared, so 25 times 5 to the first. So 25 times 5, that's 125. X to the 5th, y to the 10th. So letter N right there. And now if you remember these are the power of a power. So we're going to end up multiplying those. So 7 times negative 5 is negative 35. And again, we can't have a negative, so we're going to have to flip it. So 1 over x to the 35th. So letter V there. And then 14, when it's like this, we're going to add those together. So negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8. Again, we can't have a negative exponent. So 1 over 9 to the positive 8th power, which looks like was up here, and that's letter H. Okay, y squared times y to the 4th, well, that gives us y to the 6th, divided by y to the 3rd. And if you remember, when we have a problem that looks like this, we really subtract those. So 6 minus 3 is 3. So we're just looking for one that says y to the 3rd, which is letter C here. And then this one, it says negative 2 to the 4, or negative 2x to the 4th power. And if you remember this, that means that the 4 goes to both. So that's really like saying negative 2 to the 4th power and x to the 4th power. And if we do the math there, negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, that gives us positive 16. So that's letter H there. And then these ones with negatives on the outside, remember it also goes to both, kind of like on 16, but since there's negatives on the outside, that means they both are going to get flipped. So x to the negative second, 11 to the negative second, and then we're going to flip-flop them because they both have negative exponents. So it ends up becoming 11 to the second and x to the second. And then if you simplify 11 times 11, that's the same as 121. X to the second. So that's letter M. And then it looks like the same thing here. So the 1 gets a negative 3 exponent. The 3 gets a negative 3 exponent. And then 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. So again, they all have negative exponents here, so they're all flipping. So the 1 goes to the bottom, the negative 3 goes to the top, the y goes to the top. Everything's flipping because it has that negative exponent. So that means we have 3 to the 3rd on top, and y to the 9th on top, and then pretty much just 1 on the bottom, because 1 times 1 times 1, 3 times is just 1. So that's going to pretty much go away. 3 to the 3rd means 3 times 3 times 3. So that's the same as 27. And then y to the 9th is y to the 9th. So letter Y there. So then the answer to our joke here, why do bees have sticky hair? And the answer to that is they have honeycombs.